Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the beginning of the last days. It is an honor to be with you. It's one of my favorite things I do every day is come and sit on this little perch and talk to you about what's going on. And today we're going to be talking about life and all that is good, and the shocking return of young people to be standing up against taking the life of the unborn. I think that's a very positive move. Also, in the United States of America, with all the crazy going on, there is a great return by the young back to God. And we've seen some polls on that, and I think that's good. So I love to open up my dad's Bible and read to you from what he thought was important. And this is kind of interesting. I'm not sure why my dad underlined this, but it gives me it gives me pause for thought. In Jeremiah 4, verse 25, it says, my dad's underlined and then circled one word. I beheld, and lo, there was no man. No is circled, and all the birds of the heavens were fled. Of course, it's in Old English. And I wondered what he was outlining there. The rest of the chapter seems to be talking about the foolishness of the land of Israel and the Israelites not honoring God in all of their ways. And this saying, I beheld, and lo, there was no man. And so I wonder if Jeremiah was pointing out that sometimes there's no one standing in the gap for doing what is right. And it allows a lot of unrighteousness to be put forward. So I'm going to get right to our guest today because this is such an important topic and I want to give him as much time as we can. I'll never forget a personal story when a friend of mine called and said that there was a young lady and she was pregnant with twins and she was going to go have an abortion. She was very young. It was an unexpected pregnancy. And lo and behold, she'd already been able to get an ultrasound and she was having twins. And she was going to get an abortion within a couple of days. And I pulled the car over to the side of the road and I said to her, please give her my number, give her my name, and let her know that I will do anything to help her, including taking the babies, adopting, anything, whatever she needs. I'll do anything to help her. Please, don't do this. So my friend said, okay, I'll go and talk to her. But there was no talking this young person out of it. She wasn't even moved by it. She had come to the conclusion that this was just a normal thing that we do. If we have an unplanned pregnancy, we just have an abortion. And I remember my heart breaking in the next couple of days when the procedure had been done, and two destinies and two lives would never be allowed to have time to see what God's plan had been for them. And the Word of God says, behold, I formed you in your mother's womb, and I knew you before you were born. And that God knows the hairs on our head, and that He knows our structure. He understands the walls of our life. It says the walls are ever before Him in another passage in Isaiah. Our walls, our structure, who we are, our character. He knows all about us. And when we reduce human life to the point where it's meaningless and it's without thought, that we can just discard human lives, I believe we've come to a very dark place in our humanity. So there are groups that stand up for the unborn. And one of the best known in Canada is Campaign Life Coalition. And we have the Director of Political Operations, Jack Fonseca, here to talk to us about what is going on in their organization. Hello, Jack. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me on again, Laura-Lynn.
You are
Appreciate it.
welcome. Thank you for being here. We have some big things going on. For instance, there's the March for Life parade that's coming up do we call it not really a
Well,
parade?
we
I don't
call it a
know.
march. We call it
A
a march.
march,
That's because that's what we do. We march through the streets.
right, on May 11th. And that's going to be a great thing. And I'd, I'd like to, I'd like to talk to you about our nation and the sadness I feel basically that I'm so happy to hear you told me that young people are beginning to really care uh, about babies and unborn babies. But our nation and our political um, establishments, they don't seem to care about it at all.
Mhm. Yeah, obviously the we have the most pro-abortion, pro-death prime minister this country's ever seen in Justin Trudeau. He is promoting abortion all the time, nonstop, constantly. He is funneling hundreds of millions of dollars into abortions and abortion advocacy, both domestically in Canada and overseas. We're now, I saw one report that the Canadian government under Trudeau is now paying for abortions of American women if they say that they're not able to get an abortion in their own state because of Roe versus Wade being overturned. And just this week in the news, we had Liberal cabinet ministers musing over whether they're going to have enough abortion pills in Canada to be able to provide them to American women should the U.S. Supreme Court there make the abortion pill illegal, which there is a lawsuit going on, and there was a lower court decision that where the judge, a very good and honest judge, actually declared that yes, this pill must be banned. Um, so we've got this prime minister pushing all of this evil, and not just on the abortion at the beginning of life, but also at the end of life with euthanasia. So under Justin Trudeau, we now have euthanasia has expanded to people. You know, it went originally they said, oh no, don't worry, this is just for the terminally ill. It's just for people who are dying and suffering greatly, and there's nothing else that can be done for them supposedly. But now they passed a law C7 to expand it to the depressed and mentally ill. Now we see that just spiraling out of control, and they might not say it's out of control. It might be by design. It's exactly what they want. People requesting euthanasia and being approved for it because they can't. There's not enough housing. They can't have enough. Sorry, they can't access health care in a timely manner because of our crumbling, horrible healthcare system in Canada. So that's a reason to request euthanasia now. We have veterans, Canadian veterans being, asking for wheelchair lift or treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder when they call Veteran Affairs Canada, and they're being told instead, well, have you considered medical assistance in dying, as they call it? So and we have at the same time a Liberal government committee is studying how to legalize child euthanasia. That one hasn't been legalized yet, but it's clear that's what they're planning to do. So there's all these assaults coming on life, but there is some good happening as well. You alluded to it. We have the National March for Life coming up on May 11th. It's the 26th annual National March for Life. It's an event that was continuously growing, and the proportion of youth, the number of youth getting involved, coming to Ottawa, to the steps of Parliament Hill, to demand that members of Parliament and the Prime Minister restore legal protection for children in the womb. Those numbers were growing, and it was a very greening movement. And the COVID lockdowns put a dent into that with things going virtual, but we had a good turnout last year. And I think it's going to continue to grow, and we'll get back up to our numbers where we were getting 25 to 30,000 people, most of them under 30, coming to the March for Life. So that's happening May 11th.
Wow,
Campaign Life,
that's a lot
and
of
we're seeing,
people.
yeah, it's
That's
the largest.
exciting.
It's the largest annual protest in Canada. In Parliament Hill, and so we're very proud of that, and we want to keep that growing. And it's part of the reason of coming on your show, so that I'm sure you have a great many followers and fans in Ottawa, And if they're in that Ottawa area, if they can come out on Thursday, May 11th, and join the March for Life to demand um, legal protection for children in the womb, that would be wonderful. And and in terms of the youth too, it's not directly related, but I think it is related in a sense. We see young people starting to stand up on other issues, like the 16-year-old Catholic high school student Josh Alexander
Oh, yeah.
standing up against transgender ideology. It's amazing. He did that. He suffered the costs. He got arrested. He got expelled from school, basically. And there's things happening. I think the Holy Spirit is moving. At least I
I
hope
do.
so.
Yeah, I do too. And I think as the insanity and the darkness kind of grows, that much, that much more grace is what God's pouring into our world. And I am excited to see Josh Alexander. I was so shocked. Like, here's a young guy standing up for girls, and the principal of a Catholic school is not standing with him. I'm pretty taken back by our world and even the church in some cases that abortion is rarely preached about. I don't hear it a lot, and it's something that would be very dear to the heart of God. And as I've been speaking across the country, I've been saying, what are we to do with a nation that doesn't care about the unborn? What is God to do with a nation that doesn't care about that? How is He going to bless us when we don't even have one law to protect the unborn, if I'm correct on that?
That's right. Yeah, Canada is literally a lawless nation. There is no law on abortion. You're just permitted to have an abortion by default, to kill your child right up to the moment of birth, and it's just a matter of, can you find a doctor who's willing to do so? Can you find an abortionist who's willing to do so? So there's nothing illegal about killing your child in the womb right at 1 minute before birth, or 1 second before birth.
Yes.
So it really is a crazy, wild situation that we have in Canada.
And even, women, aren't they outraged that more female fetuses, babies would be just removed, because people sometimes have sex selection abortions. That seems like a real abomination to females. We should be upset about that. Um, but there's no rise against this. In fact, I mean, you know, if you kill a baby seal, you would be equally as hated as if you want to save a baby human. You know, the
Yeah.
venom that comes from people, they're literally, frothing at the mouth with the hatred towards anyone who believes that babies should be protected, and especially when there's so many other options that people could be
Mhm.
looking at.
Yeah, and if I can pick up on something you mentioned, the lack of preaching from our spiritual leaders, whether it's Catholics or Protestants, evangelicals, there really is very little preaching on the matter, and that's really scandalous, because Jesus said, "Whatever you do unto these little ones, whatever you do unto my brothers and sisters, you do unto me." And what weaker, more vulnerable brother and sister does Jesus have than the child in the womb, who has no voice and no advocate, when even her own mother um, has scheduled an appointment to have an assassin, really an abortionist, kill her.
Wow.
So it's really scandalous that we don't have more clergy, more religious leaders preaching vigorously and unceasingly about this issue, because it's the greatest um, social justice issue of our time. It's the greatest human rights issue of our time. The mass slaughter of human beings in the womb, to the tune of 100,000 per year. 100,000 per year. That's the size of a small Canadian city.
Yeah. Wow. When you put it that way, it's just shocking and terrible.
Yeah.
Um, so how do we change all of this? We have to use politics, I guess. There would need to be bills. There would need to be somebody sounding the trumpet and bringing it forward in Parliament, right? In order to have any of this changed. Is that the only way forward.
Well, it's not the only way. I mean, the law is one element of what we need to do. The changing hearts and minds has to happen first, right? So before the law can change, we've got to change the hearts of a majority of members of parliament, so that they are strongly pro-life and want to restore legal protection and want to support such legislation. And before that can happen, we've got to change the hearts and minds of average Canadians so that the majority of Canadians identify as pro-life, and they tell the pollsters, we want to see every child protected. We want to see this abomination of abortion, a horrible thing from the past, behind us. And so it requires preaching. It requires a lot of prayer and fasting. Jesus said that some demons can only be driven out by prayer and fasting, and the abortion demon may be one of those. Unless Christians get serious in very large numbers of appealing to God to reach down from heaven into our world and change our circumstances by offering Him prayer and fasting, that He may not give us that grace. He may not give us answer our prayers until that happens. So, but the political part is a part of it. The March for Life is an important part to support pro-life events. And the March for Life, our theme this year is stand firm, and it's taken from Ephesians 6:14, where it states in sacred scripture, "Stand firm, therefore, having belted your waist with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness." So the scriptures tell us to put on the armor of God to fight against evil. And so we need to do that, not only by not only our pastors and priests and bishops and other spiritual leaders, but also average everyday Christians, in speaking one-to-one to their friends and neighbors, their family members, people at work about the injustice of abortion, and sharing this gospel of life with them. So that's all important. And so I sorry to take you off track there a little bit, but I wanted to broaden the picture of everything we need to do.
And I think that's a very relevant point that, there's laws that would be good to have that in place. But if you can change the hearts and minds of people, that is a very important thing. And then that could eventually lead to the laws. But it feels a little bit like we're going backwards. I remember the days when, Andrew Scheer, or before him, our Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, openly declared themselves to be pro-life, but then the assault of the mainstream media got so very hard, especially when Andrew Scheer was vying to be the prime minister, that there was a real backing down from all of that. And like now, there is no party, no elected official that's in a party that will stand against abortion, not even the Conservative Party of Canada. In the Conservative Party of Canada, in their handbook on page 30, this is what the Conservative Party of Canada policy declaration is, and that is that a Conservative government, right there, will not support any legislation to regulate abortion. And so that is now policy. But I remember all of the people when I went to a policy convention for the Conservative Party of Canada, and I saw all the people lobbying to get something on the books for that, but it didn't work. And in fact, they pulled some shenanigans in the back rooms because there's people that are pulling strings, and they didn't allow that issue to really get a fair shake. And then Lisa, I forget her last name, in the Conservative Party, she was an MP and then she lost her seat. But Lisa, she's very popular, but she got up in front of the whole convention center, and she said, please do not vote for abortion to be one of our policies. What is her name? You guys all know. So Lisa Raitt. Was that what it is? Yeah. And that was a very hard thing for me personally to watch. I saw how politics just destroys even and silences even its own members that actually would like to see this put forward. But now we have, so then it leads us to the place where we see that there is no elected parties that have on their platform any issue. It shall not be raised, it shall not be spoken of, and that must sadden the heart of God, because that is the state of Canada at this time now.
Yeah, and if I can, that policy number 76 in the Conservative Declaration, you're right, that's a terrible statement. It doesn't belong there, and it does not reflect the will of the grassroots members of the party, which, a majority actually are socially conservative to some extent and do not believe in abortion on demand, which basically that statement does indicate. But we came pretty close, even with all the shenanigans you mentioned. Andrew Scheer also came out with a statement right before the convention to poison delegates, against the resolution to delete that policy. So despite those shenanigans, it was a fairly close vote. The delegates, it lost 53 to 47%, I believe was the percentage. And, Campaign Life is still involved in the Conservative Policy Convention. Yeah, of course, as many of your people might know, we support pro-life candidates at election time of all stripes: Conservatives, Christian Heritage Party, PPC candidates, and independents. But we are very involved in the Conservative Party declaration, and one of our goals in this upcoming convention, September 7th to 9th in Quebec City, is to delete that policy. And we're hoping we will succeed. The resolution has already been submitted sponsored by an EDA and co-sponsored by another. As of this moment, just needs 2 more EDAs to electoral district associations to co-sponsor it so that it moves on to the next voting stage.
Well, that should be very easy.
Yeah, yeah. And the policy declaration also, pro-life members of the party did pass a ban or a policy that condemns sex-selective abortions. That's part of that policy declaration elsewhere in it. And that's thanks to the work of pro-lifers who stayed in the party. And there's also a statement against abortion coercion and in support of legislation for unborn victims of violence. So that statement, number 76, actually contradicts a few others. So it needs to go, and hopefully it will happen this year.
Well, that is good, and that's very positive. I appreciate when I was running for the PPC that we wanted to put forward a bill, should we have the privilege of ever being elected, but that would make it illegal to have a late-term abortion. This would seem very obvious. A baby is now kicking, and I know it wasn't just a few months ago when news came out about a late-term abortion that took place in Canada, and I think Fatine was one of the people highlighting that. And, a lot of people didn't even know that late-term abortion wasn't illegal. So like you say, we just have no laws governing that. And I do appreciate that there are people like Rod Taylor of the Christian Heritage Party. This is a party that definitely, stands up for those principles. But it'll certainly be interesting, as we move forward. It would be great if Pierre Poilievre would allow the freedom of his party members and the EDAs to, as you say, a large majority, perhaps, or a majority of the grassroots of the Conservative Party of Canada believe this, then it seems that there should be votes made and that there should be changes to support what the grassroots feels. But if we get taken over and if we have leadership that does not support the ways of life, then this is what we get. And at least we're fighting during the marches, and we continue to try to lobby for these kinds of things to change. But God is watching, and our country of Canada seems to be in a season of difficulty, and I do wonder if it's because we really have not given any adherence to, I don't know what that is, that noise, given any adherence to, the power and the principles of God.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we turned our backs on God. Our public schools stopped or prevented, banned the reading of the Bible or praying the Our Father, things that used to be done. The crosses were removed from so many of the institutions, and we walked away from God, and he this is the result. He leaves us to our own devices until we come back to him. So this is what's happening. Um, I want to go back to something you said about leaders like Pierre Poilievre, that they should respect the fact that the base of the party, a majority, and by my calculations, it's up to 60 to 70% of the Conservative Party's base are socially conservative, and there's numbers to back that up. Like uh, in recent polls, uh, 80% of Canadians would support legislation to ban sex selective abortions. 70% of Canadians would support legislation to ban late term abortions. So it's a no brainer to have something in your policy, something in your election platform to appeal to social conservatives, to people of faith, and those who believe in the sanctity of life, and hunger for that. And I know people in my life, and you probably do as well, who have left the political process completely. They no longer vote because they figure all the parties are exactly the same, and they say, what's the point? So if Pierre had the guts and other conservative leaders, they would be able to appeal to those people and get them voting again. And so there's some cards left on the table. There's some money left on the table there, so to speak.
Well, and you just bring up such a good point about people are willing. Why is this such a, honestly, I think sometimes it's the women in the parties that are just so pro-abortion and just believe that you've got to have that right as a woman, and it's unfettered access to abortion that they stand for. I mean, this is a women's issue, so it strikes me that you've got, people in the party, the Conservative Party, like Michelle Rempel, Garner, and these different ones who are just all out on all the woke issues, the same as the Liberals, that they would, and Lisa Raitt, as she did before, just really peddling their influence into the whole thing, and then men not standing up because maybe it is a women's issue, and so they just back down. It's a very sad state and a lack of courage. And meanwhile, babies, small towns every year are being aborted, and God is watching.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have, something else I didn't mention was Justin Trudeau has threatened and promised to remove charitable tax status from every pro-life crisis pregnancy center in the country, and there's a lot of them, and they do tremendous work in helping pregnant women in crisis who maybe don't have a place to live. They help find them shelter, food. If they keep their baby, they help them with diapers and baby food and formula and all of that stuff. So much valuable help. And Justin Trudeau has ordered his minister responsible for that area to remove charitable tax status from all of these crisis pregnancy centers, which is harming women. I mean, it's an attack on women. It's unbelievable, that he's getting away with this. It remains to be seen if he gets away with it. But this is it's very serious. Removing the charitable tax status would actually destroy these centers,
Right.
because the charity law requires that when an organization has their charitable tax status removed, they must either sell their assets and give the money to the government, the proceeds to the government, or transfer it to a different unrelated charity.
Mhm.
So it's an all-out destruction of crisis pregnancy centers.
Well, and can you imagine the gall after all of the charity scandals that he's had? I guess charities that are of any value to him would be those that pay him big numbers and his family members big dollars to do speeches, you know. And so, who's he to speak about the value of charities? If something helps people and takes care of women, as you say, that would be a very, very terrible thing to do. I noticed that on your website, you guys deal with a lot of things. If you just pull up that share there, JT, you've been outspoken about the dragging Ontario down with Bill 94. And I'm wondering what is going on with all of that? What's happening with Bill 94?
Yeah, so that was a bill introduced in the Ontario legislature by the NDP, so by the opposition party. Doug Ford, the PC Party of Ontario, is the government. So the NDP is the opposition, and this um, uh, NDP member, Christian Wong Tam or something like that is her name. She I think she identifies as a lesbian or as transgender or non-binary, something like that. One of the alphabet letters, and so she introduced this bill, and she brought to the press conference to introduce this bill. You know, men dressed as women, as wizards, as a sorcerer, a very bizarre and strange circus-like thing. But the bill is very serious. The bill will make it a criminal act. You'll go to jail if you protest a drag queen story hour at a public library, a daycare center, your own child's school. So you can no longer, if this were to pass and become law, you could go to jail for being within 100 meters of these drag queen story hours. But it's more encompassing even than that. So it also bans Christians and conservatives from protesting outside of gay pride parades. So we have in Toronto, for instance, some Christian street preachers. I can't remember their names right now, but for years they've been sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ with men and women in the gay pride parade who are involved in those lifestyles. And they'll go to jail now if they go anywhere close to the gay pride parade to share the gospel of Jesus Christ and read the Bible. So this is really a diabolical, satanic attack on the church and on our human rights. You know, this is a fundamental right to speak freely, to express your thoughts, to express your opposition to something that you believe to be wrong, peacefully and nonviolently. So it's a very, very dangerous piece of legislation. We hope that the supermajority progressive conservative government of Doug Ford will vote it down or kill it in some way. But it was very alarming to see the government House leader, Doug Ford's own government House leader, Paul Calandra, a Toronto area MPP for the PC party, stand up when this bill was introduced and praise it. He applauded it and said, we all, basically we all agree this is wonderful. So it leaves us wondering, is the Doug Ford government going to support this ban on free speech, these censorship zones to be designated around drag queen story hours at libraries and everywhere else, and any LGBT activity or event that you want to protest on moral or religious grounds peacefully, of course. And so we hope that they're not going to support it. And so on our website, you mentioned campaignlifecoalition.com, you can find an action alert email campaign there that you can very quickly and easily put in your email address, your name, and send off an email to your local MPP if you live in Ontario. It's only available for Ontario residents, not outside of Ontario. But so if you don't know who your MPP is, it's very easy. There's some pre-scripted messages that you can choose from, or you can edit, or you can write your own and just put in your email address and send it off to your MPP, asking them to vote against this Bill 94. And for those in BC, member of provincial parliament is the same as an MLA, the member of the Legislative Assembly.
Right, right. We learned that when we had MPP Randy Hillier on so much. We figured out how the different titles worked. And I appreciate all that you're doing, like Stop Radical Sex Ed on my share there. You guys are really helping people in all aspects of our society and protecting children from conception all the way to what they're being taught in the schools. And I really love that, especially like this morning, JT showed me this flag, and this flag was up on Twitter and had 1 million views before it was taken down. And this is the new pedophile flag. And the pedophiles, the Luciferian evil and most terrible people that are, setting up to attack children. This has been a very shocking development. We predicted it, but I didn't anticipate it coming on so fast, with a lot of different places and even the United Nations voting and making movements to decriminalize sexual activity with children. It's very shocking.
It is, and that's the next frontier for the alphabet people is to normalize, what they might call intergenerational sex, and they're trying to, in academic circles, there's so many professors now that have been exposed, trying to teach society and their students that we shouldn't say the term pedophile anymore. That's very negative and demeaning, and we should refer to them as minor attracted persons. So it has that flavor that the gay lobbies always used and transgender activists use of a sexual orientation. Well, it's a minor attracted person. It's kind of a sexual orientation, right? Just like homosexuality and what gender identity is turning out to be. Where they used to say that the gender identity disorder is a mental illness, and that's how they got the government to fund sex change surgeries at $50,000-$60,000 a pop with our tax dollars, by saying it's a medical issue. They have a mental illness that needs resolving, and now they've kind of dropped that by the wayside. They got the money, and now it's like you just choose. It's there's no talk of a mental illness. It's your gender expression. It's a right. It's a human right. So it's moved from mental illness, a medical issue, to the level of human right, supposedly. And that's what they're trying to do with the pedophilia now. And as you said, there's movements in other countries to lower the criminal sanctions and lower the protections for children. So it's a pattern for sure.
Wow. You're sort of in an organization, as I let you go here, Jack, where you're facing the biggest demons of all time. Your organization is going right up against them. And I really honor that. And I pray that the folks that are watching would be generous to your organization, Campaign for Life and Campaign Life Coalition. Did I say that properly?
Yeah.
And that people would see that you're doing good work and you need the support and able to be doing that good work. And I thank you for that and for the strength it must take to get a lot of information come across your desk that's pretty negative. But you've been there a long time now. So well done in that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. And on that point, you had mentioned the work that our organization does. I should mention our website for the National March for Life. It's marchforlife.ca. So people who want to get involved, who want to attend or read more about it, it's marchforlife.ca. So 4 is spelled FOR. And
Okay.
so it's not the number 4, it's marchforlife.ca. And and for people who maybe want to tune in and they just simply live in another province, they're nowhere near Ontario or near Ottawa, but they'd like to watch March for Life, it will be live streamed by our broadcasting partner called EWTN. It's the Eternal Word Television Network. It's a global Catholic network out of Alabama that has partnered with us and with Dunn Media, the producer of all of our programming, and they will be live streaming the whole event for the entire day. So people can watch the march, they can hear the speeches from pro-life politicians, from pro-life leaders. They can watch the march happening and all kinds of great stuff.
Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful, Jack. Man, I wish I could get out there. I'm going to be over in that side of the world pretty close to that time, but almost a week before. So, but 30,000 people, like, wouldn't it be great if we can get that up to 100,000 people marching for life in this country? I believe that God would see that. And he already does see all of the people that are standing, but it's just absolutely phenomenal numbers, really, when you think about it. So, Jack Fonseca, thank you very much. We pray blessing on the work that you do. Please continue to do it. It's an uphill battle, but it's worth it. And we're making headway, I believe. I dare to proclaim the day where we see laws that pertain to abortion being put in place for the protection of the unborn in Canada. And I'm believing for that.
All right. Thank you so much. Amen
You're
to that.
welcome. All right. Take care, Jack. Thank you.
You too, Laura-Lynn. God bless.
God bless. It's a very good thing to be standing in the gap for the unborn. And I don't understand it. Like, why, I remember when I put some pro-life, like a pro-life picture up on my Facebook years ago, and the hate and the stuff, and I wasn't used to that, and I didn't really know how to stand the way that I do now. And I remember being, wow, like, okay, backing off from, putting pro-life messages on my Facebook. And I have since decided that I will put pro-life messages everywhere I go, and I don't care who says what about it. Isn't it interesting? People think they can boss you around on what you believe in, and we all cave just because there's a little bit of lashback. I hope that you'll find the best, most beautiful baby in a womb. They have those great pictures, of how miraculous it looks to see a baby in there with all their little fingers. All the destiny that that child needs is there, and it's actually there the moment of conception. All it takes for the baby to develop into the full destiny of God that the Lord intends for that particular union and that life, all it takes is time. That's it. So that baby in the smallest form of who he or she is no less valuable than that full-born baby or full-grown man, grandma and grandpa. Can you believe that our grandmas and grandpas, they once started by that tiny little speck that would be almost invisible to the eye? That's how they started. And everything that's in that incredible person was there. All of it. Their character, the destiny that they would live out, it was all there right at conception. And yet, so often it's not honored in our culture. And I just wonder, what will God do with all of that? So Jeremiah 5:1, it says, oh no, it's not Jeremiah 5:1. It is Jeremiah 1:5. Got it mixed up. Jeremiah 1:5 says, behold, I formed you in the womb. Let me just literally read it to you. Someone out there right now, you might be considering making a decision because something has surprised you. And Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart, and I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. That's what God told Jeremiah. God is not a respecter of persons. Before you were born, God knew you. Before that baby that is in your womb was formed, God knew that baby. God knows that baby. There's a plan for that baby. We never want to be in the place where we're stopping the will of God in a person's life. And so I pray, if you have decisions to make, that you will make those incredible decisions based on the Word of God. As always, our website is Laura-Lynn.tv. Thank you for your support. Thank you for helping us to do what we do. Thank you for loving us, for your many blessings, your many messages that you send to us. I want to end today by, I feel like I have a little hair on the top of my nose here. Okay. In Matthew 5, God said, blessed are the poor in spirit. This is verse 3, Matthew 5, verse 3. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. You know, if you're a merciful person to those who have erred and who need kindness shown, and if you are that person, then you will also receive that mercy. If not in this lifetime, you'll certainly receive it from God when He sees you. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness. This is not a bad season in history, is it? Where we are getting lashback for doing the right thing, getting shows taken away because you're too Christian or you mention God too much, like we saw earlier last week, I guess, with Glenn Beck's clip, stating he was told not to say the word God on Fox News, and he kept saying it. Got in trouble. He eventually had to leave. Tucker Carlson, same thing. Wow, top of their game. And just like Jack Fonseca just said, there is proof that there's a majority of people who actually honor God and even honor life and do not want to see lives just aborted. I mean, never mind how awful that process is. But just the sheer removal of a destiny, how sad that is. And there is consensus in this land. So blessed are we when we're persecuted for doing what's right, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I really like that. I want my kingdom, my ultimate kingdom, to be heaven. It's going to be spectacular. See you soon. God bless.
It's not easy to deliver the truth of what our sick world is doing, but for some of us, we feel that we have no choice. Because if we are silent about these abominable things, then we are letting evil go unchecked, and we cannot do that. For those of you wonderful people who are writing me and are sharing your encouragement, I am deeply grateful. Thank you for all the letters that you've been sending. Thank you for the donations and the support. I found out that in order to speak the truth, you have to become very, very strong. If you would go to my website at www.laura-lynn.tv, you'll find all of the ways that you can contact me. Remember, my friends, all is well. All is well. Thanks for joining me.